Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see that we have a couple of attendees already present. I am just going to wait for 2 to 3 minutes to give others a chance to join, and we'll get a head start. All right, let's get started. I am very happy to see all of you joining us for this live training session. This session is going to be focused on reports and dashboards in PractiTest. My name is Elly. I am a customer success manager here at PractiTest. We do these sessions quite often. Many times they are general overviews of the platform. Sometimes we do targeted sessions like this one or one on the new UI. Please feel free to check out past sessions and of course sign up for the upcoming ones. The agenda for today's live training is going to be, first we will do a quick overview of PractiTest modules and PractiTest methodology for those of you who are new to PractiTest. And then we'll dive into the dashboards and reports. We'll be talking on how to utilize custom fields and filters to create dashboards. We'll create some items in the dashboards and create some reports together. And of course, there's going to be a time for questions at the end of the session. However, you do have access to the chat. I see some of you have already even wrote there. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and I will take some time during the session to review it and answer any of your questions as we go. All right, so as some of you probably already know, PractiTest is a test management platform meant to be a centralized testing hub for all of your QA efforts. We can be used as a standalone solution, as well as integrated with other platforms. If you're already using Jira or Azure DevOps, ClickUp, we have very robust integrations with these project management tools, and you can use PractiTest together with these platforms. As you can see from this slide, we have a lot of customers, and I love showing this slide because I do work with existing customers of PractiTest. We work with many different companies across various verticals. We support a lot of different QA processes. The platform is very flexible, and normally most of QA teams find a way to fine-tune the platform to their specific needs. Generally speaking, PractiTest is built out of four major components. There is the planning component, the requirements or user stories. This is where you would create them inside PractiTest, or there's also a possibility to import them from your project management tool like Jira, for example. There's also the testing component. It is split into two. We do have a test library, which is your reusable library to store your test cases, and the test sets and runs, which is the execution module. This is where you run your tests or record results of your test if you are running them automatically. And the issues module is a module where you naturally manage your issues and bugs. These can be managed only in PractiTest, or you can also report them back to your project management platform like Jira again or Azure DevOps. Last but not least is actually the subject of today's session is the reporting module. It consists of reports and dashboards. I will be talking a lot about these today, so let's get started. Before I transition to PractiTest, I wanted to mention that we recently had a very successful event called QA Takes the Lead. It hosted a lot of different speakers and they spoke on various subjects on QA, of course. So if you're interested to check out some of these sessions, feel free to scan the QR code that you can see on the screen. There you will find a breakdown of all the sessions with the titles and speakers, so you can download recordings and watch them at your own time. All right, I am going to navigate to PractiTest now. And also going to quickly check the chat to see if there's any questions. All right, so far, no questions. All right, so before we get started, I wanted to say a word about the difference between dashboards and reports. Why do we have two separate modules for the reporting module? Dashboards is a great reporting tool for high-level overview. It is great for tracking your progress, for spotting trends. Also, because our dashboards support external URL generation, you can share dashboards outside of PractiTest with stakeholders that don't have PractiTest licenses. While reports, on the other hand, is something that you would use for a more to look into specific items and analyze details. You can dig deeper into your data, and you can also download reports outside of PractiTest in Excel or PDF format and really do whatever you want with that data if you want to share it or maybe run some kind of analysis on it. Let's begin with the dashboards. So generally speaking, dashboards consist of two major components. We have the tabs that you can see on the top here. In my demo project here, I have two tabs, one for as my general dashboard for the entire project or the entire team. And I also have one that is my personal dashboard. I only have 3 items here, and this is where I manage my own KPIs and my own work. You can create unlimited number of tabs. You're not limited in any way. However, you are limited to only 8 items per tab. So as you can see in my general dashboard, I have currently only 8 tabs. And in my personal dashboard, I have 3, so I can create more. And later on in this session, we will be creating some items together. So I will be creating them in my personal dashboard. In order to create a new tab, before we actually create a tab, I wanted to mention that there are a few use cases that I've seen my clients use for the tabs. It is often something that they use to differentiate between their own work and work of their team, something similar to what I have in my project. But many clients also use it to create separate views for different sprints or maybe different releases. Sometimes we have multiple teams sitting in the same project, and you wouldn't want that data to be all in one place, so you can use that as a separation. So to create a new tab, you need to navigate to the New Tab button over here, and you will be taken to the New Dashboard tab window. Here you can give your tab a name. You can choose whether you want your tab to be private or public. Private meaning that you will be the only user that will be able to see it, or you can leave it public and then anybody in the project can see it. There's also what I already mentioned, the external URL support. If you check this box before creating the tab, you will be able to generate a URL that you can later share outside of PractiTest. Once you check all the boxes, you just save the dashboard and your new tab will appear over here. Once you have your tab, you can continue editing it. There is an editing button, edit dashboard button on top here. This will take you to the dashboard tab editing window. you can, first of all, you can copy your external URL since it's enabled. You can also see all of the items that you have added to this tab, and you can rearrange them as well by drag and dropping them. You can clone this tab, which is a very useful feature in case if you are, let's say, creating different tabs per sprint. Instead of creating each time a tab from scratch, you can just clone the one that you already have, filter it according to the sprint, and do it in less than 5 minutes. And there is, of course, the tab level filter. This is a relatively new feature that we've released this year. It's basically a filtering option that you can apply on tab level. So you will not need to apply individual filter per item. You can just select the field that you want as a reference. In this case, I have a sprint. And then once you go back to the dashboard, you will see the tab level filter over here, and you can select the value that relates to this tab. Another editing option that we have in the dashboard is the general dashboard editing option. It's available in the top right corner here. This will take you to the general dashboard editing place. You can see all of your tabs, all of the items in the tabs, and you can do a few more things from here. For example, a very useful option is to archive a tab. Let's say you've created 25 different tabs. Some of them are no longer relevant. However, you don't feel like deleting them. You may need them in the future. So you can just click on archive, and this will allow you to later on click on this button here and see all of your archived tabs, and then unarchive them if you want to see them again. All right, let's go back to the dashboard. So this is it for the editing, for the general editing options. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about the items. So as I mentioned before, you are limited to 8 items per tab, and I've added a few items to my dashboard just to demonstrate the capabilities what you can achieve with a dashboard. And I try to focus on the items that are generally popular among our clients. The first one is a pie chart. This is a testing status pie chart that shows me the testing status in my project. I see all of my tests that passed, all of the tests that failed, and any other statuses that you have in your project. I also have this testing progress chart. We call it execution graph. It basically shows you the same data, the run statuses, but it shows them in a timeline. Here, I think I have about 4 weeks of worth of testing, and I can, on each and every day, I can hover over it and see how is my testing going. There is also a distribution chart. This one I decided to create based on the issues module. So the data is being pulled from the issues module, and this is my bugs distribution based on the priority and also on the status of each bug. These items are also clickable, and probably this is why distribution table is one of the most popular items actually in our dashboards. Once you create a distribution chart, you can click on you can basically click on each of the cells, and that will take you to a custom view of all of the issues. Oops, sorry, I'm not sure what happened here. Let's try this one, for example. Oops. Not sure why this is not loading for me. All right. Some kind of bug, but basically what's supposed to happen is once you click on the cell, it is supposed to take you to a custom view of all of the issues that are in this distribution chart. After this live training session, I will make sure that this is fixed or see what is wrong in my dashboard. There's also another type of dashboard with the latest updates. It basically gives you a breakdown of the latest updates when it comes to your bugs. You can also relate this graph to any of the modules that you have in PractiTest. I haven't worked in my project for a bit, so I have all of my updates are 20 hours ago, but this is a dynamic item. So if you are currently working in your project, it will show you the most updated data. Another example of a chart that you can create is a bar chart. This one I created for my test library module. this is something that helps you keep track of your of you writing new tests in a test library, basically. I split it per tester and pair the statuses of these tests. So for example, for myself, I can see that I have 3 tests that are ready and 2 tests that I still need to be working on. Another interesting graph is planned and executed tests. We do have a system field called planned execution, and there's also a system field with the actual date of the execution. So you can plot these 2 fields against one another to see how many tests on each single day you plan to execute and how many you actually executed. The last 2 charts are quite interesting. I tried to create them based on some of the use cases that I have come across over my time in PractiTest. A lot of teams are interested to see how their automation coverage is going. So for example, this one shows me how many tests that were run were manual and how many were automatic in the percentage as well. So this is could be one of the KPIs for the teams to track. And this one is a gauge graph for my current regression. I am done with my current regression, so it's on 100. But as you go with your regression, it will be showing you the relevant percentage. So this was just a quick overview of our general dashboard. If we go to the personal dashboard, we have a few items that are very similar to what I just showed you. However, I did apply assign to me only filter to each of these items. So when I go to the best personal dashboard, I can only see data that relates to me and was assigned to my user instead of the general one. While I was talking about these items, you might have noticed that many of the data that you can see in the dashboard relates back to custom fields and filters that we have in PractiTest. For those of you who are newer to PractiTest, I'm sure even you already know that one of the foundation of PractiTest methodology is custom fields and filters. If we go to this pie chart, for example, and open its editing window, you will see that the field that this pie chart is based on is the run status. And this is because here I'm trying to see what are the run statuses of all of my tests. This field we can find in the test sets and runs module. This is our execution module, as you remember. And if we go into, let's say, this regression test set to the general tab, you will see all of the fields that I have in my project, including the run status field. Right now it's passed because I finished this test set and all of the tests in this test set passed. I also have additional fields here that I've defined that fit my particular flow. These fields are custom, so you can create completely different fields with completely different values. It is really up to you. For example, I've created an operation system field with various options, the test level, which is regression, obviously, because it's a regression test set. I have the execution type manual. This is, by the way, the field that I used to build the pie chart where I was comparing manual versus automated tests. And many other fields. We have the planned execution, the duration. Any of the data, once it is populated here by you manually or by the system, can be used as something that that can be used for structuring your data in dashboards and actually reports as well. Before we go back to the dashboards, I also wanted to mention, once you have custom fields defined for your test sets, for your requirements or tests or issues, you can use them to create filters and classify all of your work and create custom views based on these filters. So because I have an execution type field, I can create a filter that will show me all of my manual tests and all of my automated test sets, where the execution was manual and where it was automated. So I'm able to see those selections. I can also create a custom field called sprint, and this is how I am structuring my work. So if I go to sprint 1, I see all of the test sets that were run in the first sprint. Having this field also helps me to classify my dashboards later on. If we go back to the dashboard, you can see some of these fields appearing here. For example, the testing status we already saw. We also have the priority field, which is a custom field I've created. Although we have a priority system field that has to be manually populated, I also have the assignee field where I assign my items, and many other different fields and filters that I use to structure my items. All right, so let me see if there are any questions. Please feel free to write them in the chat. Yes, I see your question. Of course, the recording of the session will be shared with all of you after the session, so please don't worry about it. All right. So since we've covered the custom fields and filters, I think we're ready to move on to creating some items together. My thinking for today's session was to try to create together some of the items that you can see in my dashboard already. I will go to my personal dashboard for that. And the reason is because I already have 8 items in my general dashboard, so it will not let me create more. In order to create a new dashboard item, you navigate to the button right here. You can give your item a name. Since we're doing the testing status item, I will call it testing status. The selection of entities is an important part because this is where you decide from which module you want the data to be pulled from. Because we are looking at the testing statuses, so we're talking about executions, the three actually relevant entities would be the test set, instance, and run. My advice is to always use the instance unless you want to look at a specific test set. Let's say you have a regression running in a specific test set and you want to only see statuses of tests in that regression. Otherwise, go for instance, and then you can use filtering in the item editing window later on. So we've selected the entity as instance, and then we have the item type. So we are trying to create a pie chart that is based on a single field, which is going to be the run status. However, if you wanted to create a graph with 2 different fields, we'll go for a bar chart or maybe planned executed. You also have distribution table. We'll build these items together as well. Let's click on the pie chart for now. Depending on the item type that you choose, you will have a couple of filtering options as well as advanced options. And I want to discuss all of these. The test set level filter and instance level filter will cover in a moment. For now, I want to focus on this field, which is going to be the main field that decides the slicing of the chart. And you have a lot of options here. I did create a lot of different custom fields in my modules. So as we remember, we have the sprint in the test set. We have the execution type. If I wanted to now create a pie chart showing me manual versus automated, I would go for the execution type. However, I'm looking at the run statuses, so I'll choose the run status at the bottom. I also have the ability to decide on the colors of my pie chart. Let's say if some colors would be more eye-catching or easier for you to digest, feel free to specify them here. You can also remove empty values. This is normally pre-selected just to avoid the chart looking crooked. And you can also choose to display your data in percents, which is very helpful when it comes to pie chart. And then once we're done, we can click on Save Dashboard Item. It will appear on the bottom here, and this is our item. Now, because we have not specified any of the filters for this item, we are basically seeing the statuses of all the tests that I have in my project currently, which is not the most helpful. If we wanted to filter this item, there's a couple of ways that we can go about it. First of all, if we go back to the editing, let's talk about the test set level filter and the instance level filter. Test set level filter is very straightforward. These are all of the filters and fields that you have in your test sets and runs module, the ones that we have just reviewed for my regression. You can use them to limit the number of data that you see in this pie chart. For example, if I wanted to only see tests that relate to sprint 1, I would define it here. Save, and you'll see that the slicing of the pie changes. We can also look only for the tests that are assigned to me as opposed to everybody else in the project. Or we can also look at different environments or operating systems, whatever data that you want to see, you can filter it as long as you have these custom fields and filters in your module. Let's delete the filter for now. In addition to that, we have an instance level filter. As you probably know, or just sort of as a refresher, instance is a copy of the test from the test library that you add to your test sets in order to execute them in different contexts. So we create test cases in the test library in our repository, and once they are ready to be executed, we go to the test sets, create a test set, and add them to the test set. Once the test is added to the test set, it becomes an instance. So whenever we are trying to create an item in a dashboard or a report based on the executions, we will not be selecting tests, we'll be selecting instances. That is why instance level filter is relevant in this case. When it comes to instance level filter, I personally have 3. You may have more if you have some fields on the instance level as well. One of the useful ones, it would be the run status. Let's say you don't want to see any of the statuses that are blocked, so you can select is not blocked, and that will remove that slice of the pie chart from your item. You can also limit the time frame of the pie chart. Let's say you only want to see tests or instances that were run in the last, I don't know, 10 days. You can specify that as well and save. This preview is very useful for, especially when you're just beginning to work with dashboards. It's very useful to see what in the end will appear in the dashboard before you actually save it. But as you can see, there's a lot of filtering options and many ways that you can really narrow down your data. Okay, so let's save this for now. Another way that you can go about it is to use the tab level filter. So let's say at the moment, our testing status pie takes into the account all of the instances that you have in the project, but you only want to see the ones that relate to a specific sprint. You can do that on the item level, but if the same condition is relevant for all the other items in this tab, it would make sense to use the tab level filter. In this particular tab, I don't have my tab level filter enabled, and I decided to leave it that way so I can show you how to enable it. A lot of our users sometimes don't know how to do it. If you have not used it before, it will probably be grayed out in the top here. All you need to do is go to the Edit Dashboard tab and click this checkbox, select the field that you want to base your filtering on. Let's go further with the example of a sprint. Let's check this one, sprint, save. And once you save, you can go back to the dashboard and you will see that this is no longer grayed out. And now you have a selection that you can choose from. Let's say we want to see sprint 1. Once you choose a specific sprint, all of the data and all of the items will be immediately updated with that filter. And if you wanted to layer more filters on item level, for example, I want to see only tests or instances, bugs, tests in sprint 1, and I also want to see only the ones that are assigned to me, you can do that as well. All right, let me see if there's any questions at the time. Okay, no questions for now. All right, so let's move on to a different type of chart. For example, in my general dashboard, I have this execution progress graph. Let's try to create, and this will go a bit faster now because I decided to show you all of the functionalities with the example of a pie chart. It's one of the easiest one to digest, I think. So we're creating a new dashboard item. This is going to be testing progress. And we are going to be looking at instances again because we care about the run statuses. The item type will be a execution progress graph. And as you can see, the customization options, they change depending on the graph. Here, we no longer have a field to choose from. Instead, we have a timeline. And you can choose how long the timeline is going to be. I'll choose 3 weeks. And of course, you still have the filtering options on the test set level and instance level that you can apply. You will see the same fields that you saw earlier. Let's save this item. It will appear at the bottom here. This is, by the way, a good example of why this rearranging option that we have right here is very useful. So you can make your dashboard look a bit nicer and easier to to view. So this is the graph that we've just created, the testing status. So if you wanted to plot two different fields in the same item, you would go for the item types such as the bar chart, distribution table, and others depending on the entity. Let's try to create a bar chart for the test. For a change, if I'm choosing a test as my entity, it means that all the data will be pulled from the test library. And the item type will be a bar chart. And as you can see, because I selected the bar chart, I have two field selection here. Now I can choose my field for the X and the field for the Y. Because let's try to stick with the example that I had in my general dashboard, although there's a lot of ways that you can go about it. Let's say I'm working on creating new tests in the test library, and I want to know how many of these were assigned to me, how many I'm working on, and how many I still need to correct. So I would choose one of my fields as the assigned to, and the test type as, and the Y field as status. Let's save the dashboard item. All right, so now we have a breakdown of all the testers that are currently working on new tests, and I see myself here. And similarly to the other items, if I wanted to get rid of all the tests for Itai and Omri, I could just do it from the item level filter here, assigned to me, save, and I will only see myself. Or I can also, of course, do that from the dashboard level filter. So now we have this item as well. Let's also try to create a distribution table. So because these items can be used for any of the modules, you can create a pie chart for a test library or for issues. It doesn't really matter which module you choose. You will have the availability of most of these items for them. We will try to create this one for issues. Let's say I want to see bugs by priority and status. So let me choose issues as my entity. Item type in this case will be a distribution table, and I'm looking at the priority, and I'm looking at the status. And then, of course, we have, in this case, filters that will take us to the issues module. So as you can see, you no longer have the operating system and all of these fields. You only have the ones that you have in the issues. I currently only have the priority field that I defined for issues. And I also created some filters in my module to see issues that were assigned to me or assigned to me and fixed. Let's save this item. Will appear at the bottom here. Speaking of advanced editing for the items, as you can see, this item here is not very easy for me to see because it is kind of squished together. What you can do is you can click on the item, expand the advanced options, and for most graphs that are like distribution chart, execution progress, you can always decide how you want them to be represented in a dashboard. We can change the cell width from regular to double, for example, and that will give us a bit of a easier, this is much easier for the eyes. And of course, if you wanted to, you can push it here so your dashboard doesn't have these empty spaces. All right. Two more things I wanted to mention before we move on to the reports. And also, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. When you're creating tab level filter for your tabs, and you're trying to share that external link for people outside of PractiTest, the tab level filter will not be applied. So if it's a feature that you're going to be using a lot, at the moment it's not supported. So you will need to create a additional tab and filter the items individually for them to appear per sprint, for example, for them to appear correctly in the external dashboard. And was there anything else? And the last thing that I wanted to say, I did mention in the beginning that these dashboards are dynamic and they do update by themselves every 15 minutes with all of your updated information. But if you want to update dashboard now and see the most relevant data, you can always do it from the bottom here. And you also have a similar button in the external dashboard as well. It updates, as far as I remember, every 5 minutes, but you can also click on refresh now there as well. All right, let me see if there's any questions in the chat. All right, no questions so far. I hope it means that I'm doing a good job. All right, so let's move on to the reports. I already mentioned that reports is something that is more useful for detailed analysis of your data. If you wanted to receive an Excel file or a PDF file with the full information about all the tests that you ran, their statuses, any other details really that you choose, I would suggest to go for the reports rather than the dashboard. And I wanted to show you a couple of different options that we have. Once you enter the reports module, you just click on new report. And from here you have a lot of options, and I know it can sometimes feel overwhelming. They are split per module. You have the reports that are specific for requirements, for instances, tests, issues, runs, and test sets. And it's very important to know what you're looking for. That's why we added the short explanation to every report. And if you click on the report, you also have a small preview of what it's going to look like. Today, I wanted to show you some of the most common reports. One is that's used very frequently by our clients is the tabular with steps report. The main difference between the tabular reports and the detailed reports, and you will see tabular detailed in almost actually in every section. The main difference is that the tabular report is fully Excel based. It is editable and customizable once you already download it. The detailed report can be downloaded as an Excel or as a PDF report that can no longer be altered. Common use case for that could be a detailed report with attachments for instances, or maybe one for your tests if you want like a full library, full representation of your test library in PractiTest, for example. So tabular with steps report is an editable report that you can download in Excel. The customizations options for this report, and actually most of the reports, are basically endless. You can really choose a lot of things that you want to see in the report. Any of the data that you have in the project, you can include in the report. Let's give it a name, instance, tabular, for example. You can generate this report based on a filter. Going back to our little discussion about the filters and custom fields, that it's important to have them in the project. Or you can create them based on a specific test set ID. Many clients, for example, use it to download a report for their regression testing or for specific functional testing. If you're applying a filter, you will have a drop down right here. And once again, we see very similar breakdown of all of my filters that I have in test sets and runs. The displayed fields here is something that I wanted to spend some time explaining. The reason why you have so many options of fields, by clicking on this field here and dropping it in the display, it means that once you download the Excel, all of these fields will appear as columns in your Excel. So this is basically a window where you decide what data you want to include in your report. And the reason why you have so many options is because we decided to include fields from many different entities. So if you wanted to see, for example, I want to see a report of my instances, but I do want to see some of the filters that I have in test sets and runs. For example, I want to see the actual duration of the test set, or maybe I want to see who that test set was assigned to. In addition to that, although I'm looking at instances, maybe I'm also interested in seeing the test name or the test description. I may also want to see some linked issues because I ran my tests. Maybe I've reported some bugs from them and I would like them to be included in the report. And in addition to that, of course, you also have the instance only related fields at the bottom, like the run status, pass, failed, who the specific instance was assigned to, and many others. So you have many different options. Just keep in mind and always pay attention to the first part of it to make sure that you're selecting the right field from the right module. Once you've selected all of the fields that you want, you can proceed to select the charts that you want to see in this report. And this will be, oops, sorry, I didn't save my fields. Okay, let's add some here, actual duration. Let's say I want to see assigned to and a sprint, save. So once you save your displayed fields, you will click on the charts, and based on the fields that you add, you will have some chart options that you can add to the report. And I will show you the report once it's downloaded, how it looks like and what these charts look like. I'm going to add both charts here, for example, save. You have some color customizations, and this part is about the schedule reports. Some of our clients like to send these reports periodically on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And you can set it from here. You can also choose to who you want to notify this report with. And important to note here is that unfortunately at the moment you can only send these reports to users in PractiTest and not users outside of PractiTest. So if you wanted to share this report with somebody outside of your team, you need to download it first and then just send it to them outside of PractiTest. Once we are done with all of our customizations, we can create the report. And once it begins to create, it will appear in the grid here, and you will be able to download it. Now, once we look at the grid, we also have a few options here. This is the download option to download the report. Because it's a tabular summary report, we only have the option to download it in Excel. I have some detailed reports here. This one, for example, has a PDF option as well. And you also have some actions that you can do with your reports. You can delete them. You can continue editing them if you want to change some of the customizations, and you can also clone them. This is actually a very useful feature for a lot of people because they create a report, then they want to create the same report but for sprint number 2, but they don't want to worry about customizing it again, choosing the columns again, and making sure that it's the same. So you can just clone the report, and then once it clones, it appears in this grid as well, and you can continue editing it, for example, changing the filter from sprint 1 to sprint 2. So let's look at the prepared report, and I did that in advance just to make sure that we are not spending too much time waiting for the report to download. This is the instance tabular with steps report, and as I said in the beginning, the first page of the report is going to be a graph. We have a graph with assigned to summary. We have the list of testers that the tests were assigned to, and a bar chart showing the breakdown. We have the sprint summary, sprint number 1, number 2, number 3, and the split. This is also because we didn't filter this report based on the sprint, so we kind of have all the sprints information. If we wanted only to see sprint 1, we could do that as well. And we have the run status summary as well, passed, failed, blocked, etc. And these colors, by the way, you can customize as well. For example, here the failed one is orange and the passed one is blue. I would normally prefer the passed ones to be green, but this is something that you can change in the report settings. If you go to the data, you will see all of the columns that you've selected on the customization page. We have the IDs of the instances, test sets that they belong to, test set name. You have the assigned to tester, run statuses, step names, and the step statuses as well. Because this is a instance tabular report with steps, we have the steps information here. However, in case if you were working with the tabular summary report without the steps, you will not be able to include it. So it really depends on your preference, whether you want to see individual steps or just the aggregated status of the instance. Another example of a report that I wanted to show you, if we go back to PractiTest, is the tabular aggregated report. This is an interesting report that many clients find very useful. In aggregated report, you can use two fields to plot them against the run status of instances. So instead of choosing only the columns, you can actually plot the color-coded run statuses against two fields. So it will provide you with a table with the X field on the top, Y field on the side, and it will and you can choose which one of these would be the most interesting for you. For example, I decided to look at the test levels and at the product. Once you've selected both of these fields, you can, of course, schedule this report as well. Let's give it a name, instance, tabular, aggregated, and create. Once again, it appears here, and you will, once it's downloaded, you'll be able to download it from here. I am going to open my pre-made report just to speed things along. So as you can see, what I have here is a table with the test set level filter, the test level here, and the test product field over here. I have two variables for that field, the mobile application and the web application, and I have 4 levels that I've defined in my project, sorry, 3 levels that I've defined in my project, and the totals from both sides. The legend shows you the color-coded statuses of the tests, passed, failed, not completed, etc. So from here, I can tell that I have one test that was run as part of regression for the mobile application product. I have 3 tests that were not run yet for the mobile application in Smoke, and that way you can keep track of your testing as well. Another thing that I wanted to show you for the aggregated report that many clients find useful is the ability to create aggregated report and not choose one of the fields. So let's say I want to see the same breakdown for all of my available for all of the available sprints, but I don't want to select another field. I wanted to show all of my available tests. So I will choose the sprint on this side, and I will not select any of the fields on the Y side. If I do that, this is the report that I will get eventually. And as you can see, we have a full breakdown of all the tests that I have in my project and their instances or their runs per sprint. So I can see, for example, historically my I don't know, let's use maybe the user definition functions. In sprint 1, this test was run twice, and in sprint 2, it was also run twice, and what were the statuses of those runs. All right. These were the 3 examples of reports that you can download on execution level on the instance from the instance, and we've even specified test execution so that you always know where to look. However, if you wanted to see the same breakdown on the test set level or for your test library, for your requirements, we have a great report for tabular traceability for the requirements. You can see a breakdown of all of your requirements and all the tests that are linked to these requirements, sort of as an overview. So once again, these reports are very versatile, and you can include a lot of information into these reports. It really depends on what you're looking for. Last thing that I wanted to mention about the reports is the ability to rerun them. So from the grid right here, instead of creating a new report with the updated data, since you probably testing all of the time and you have this process running all of the time, you don't need to create a new report or even clone a report. You can click on the rerun sort of like a button here, and it will rerun your report on the latest data that you have in your project. All right, let me check if we have any questions. I think we've reached the Q&A part of our session, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. If you can't think of anything at this moment, you can always contact our support team or me personally at elly@practitest.com. You can also elly@practitest.com, and you can always ask any questions that you want from your customer success manager or our team. We'll be happy to help you with setting up your dashboards and showing you which reports would be relevant for your particular process. All right, I'm checking the chat to see. All right, so I'm just going to review my notes and see if there was anything that I missed and anything that I wanted to tell you about, but I didn't. No, I think we've covered the majority of the things that I wanted to talk about. Uh, Thank you, Kristen. I'm glad that Kirsten, sorry, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. All right, so I'm going to wish everybody a great rest of the week. I'm going to look forward to see you at our next sessions. And of course, like I said, each one of you will receive a recording from our marketing team. Thank you very much for joining and enjoy working in PractiTest.